One of the necessary evils of home ownership: trim touch-up painting. Most of the trim is pretty good, but there's spots, typically around doors, where the paint starts giving up. And you don't want to let this go, because then you're going to get into rotted wood and a lot more work. For the typical homeowner, no matter if you're used to painting or not, this is a fairly easy DIY project. And I'll show you a whole bunch of tips in order for you to succeed. The first thing you want to do is go to any place that sells paints and get these booklets. I've been told by a lot of people there's not a whole lot of difference between interior and exterior paint, but you want to make sure it says exterior if you're going to do this work that we're doing today on the trim and doors. You want to be able to match your paints, which is pretty important. Even if you painted it originally, weathering, touch-ups, you're not going to do the whole frame, or you're going to not do a whole area or all the trim. You want to make sure that the touch-up is representative of the current faded paint or the current state of the paint right now. Otherwise, it's going to stand out. As far as supplies go, it looks like a lot, but I just wanted to provide you options. I will use sanding sponges on trim and doors before I do anything else, but you can also use sandpaper rolls. This is a cloth tape. It's really high quality. You can also use steel wool depending on what your situation is. You want to have a couple rags, old kid t-shirts to wipe down your work as you're sanding. And when you're using sanding sponges, you want to be able to have like an old toothbrush or buy some really cheap toothbrushes in order to extend the life of your sanding sponges. As far as brushes go, you can use foam brushes. These are chip brushes. These are more expensive brushes. You can even use art brushes. I'll post options down below in case you're interested. It just depends on the paint and how much surface you're going to cover. Gloves, I always wear safety glasses on all my projects. You never know when something's going to splatter. And then we're going to use some painter's tape. The blue stuff is so much better than anything else. I have a tendency to overbuy on paint. Quart is usually the one I go for. And I was almost going to get some quartz for this project. And then I'm thinking, you know what? You're only going to use that much. This time I'm going to do something different. I'm going with sample colors. For a quart, will run you anywhere between $22 and $25, or if you want to go high rent district, probably $30 up. But these are $6.96 at my local big box store. And then you just get the color you want. But the great thing about these is you probably just use the container on that day. You don't have to pour it off. You don't have to worry about having this hanging around. And then you have to decide whether or not you want to go semi-gloss or satin. Most trim is satin or flat. Semi-gloss is for the door. So if you use up this whole container, I got two just in case because I got a lot of trim I'm touching up. But on the door, just a couple spots, you'll have this on hand. It's so much easier space-wise to hold on to. Or you don't feel so bad about pitching this because it's only $7 and you've already used it, as opposed to something that's costing you $22. I can get 3, maybe even 4 of these for the price of a high-quality paint in a quart container. Here are the color splotches that we decided on for the door and the molding. So I'll hold them up there so you can see. They're pretty good on the match. There's always shading on doors and as the sun goes around. So you want to do it at different conditions if you can before you decide on the paint you're going to get. I got the smaller samples, $7. That's a pretty good deal. And if you don't feel like really hit it on that one, you can go back and revisit and try to get it closer. There's white spots, and we also have some peeling on the sides. And here I'm just taking a box cutter and carefully going in. Don't want to mess with the seal too much, but I do want to take up this extra paint that's just not adhering to the door anymore. And so I'm going to clean that all up before I touch up. Some steel wool and smooth out this piece. My intentions, at least originally, is going to paint freehanded on this side and all the way to here, because this piece of the frame looks good and I want to try avoiding the glass. So go at the cuts or where angles meet when you're touching up a door. It's the next day,
and the molding is dry. It's a little lighter color than the door. Semi-gloss. I'm glad I did that because that's what the door is, even though it's a 20-year-old paint job.
I painted this whole molding with this brush, and that allowed me to get in here and just cut in, control how much paint came out without taping off the sides. So this was the right brush for the job. If I was doing the whole door, then I would probably use a chip brush, kind of like I did on the trim. Some of these sections came out a bit light, so I'm going to do a second coat. And that's the great magic of this brush, is you can just go in there and just lightly use a detail brush like this. You don't even have to tape it off, that white spot. A couple days later, but you can still touch it up if you find something. It's just that easy with this brush. I barely used any of the paint in this sample container. I could easily do this whole door with this one container, 7 some odd ounces, and it cost $7. You don't have to buy the big quart containers. A little bit on the glass, so I'm just going to run the straight edge down through here, make sure it's away from the molding, and then just take the knife and you can just scrape it off just like that and clean it right off the glass. It doesn't take any time at all. So much better than taping.
So a $7 can of paint, $1 maybe for this brush in your time, and you can repair your door trim. Thumbs up and comments always appreciated. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in all sorts of home repairs, making and breaking things, designs of all kinds, I even do costumes, cosplay, and props. Check out my channel and please subscribe, because you never know what home fix you're gonna see.